Welcome to this edition of Weekly Dialogues. Today I wrote an article on medium.com on the subject, why does China behave in the manner that it does? Because during this crisis of coronavirus, which many people like to call the Wuhan virus, because the beginning of the virus, the beginning of the pandemic was in Wuhan, Hubei province of China, and China sought to cover it up also because of its influence in the World Health Organization. It was able to do it quite successfully till Donald Trump started speaking about it and started calling it the Chinese virus. We know that the coronavirus was already known in November. The Chinese doctors had started talking about it, and in December it had already spread in quite a big way. But all this was hidden from the international community.
It's 7 o'clock.
Because WHO had its nominee as the Director General, Dr. Tedros, an Ethiopian. It was able to, you can say, convince him, or more likely browbeat him into accepting the Chinese version almost wholesale, without any change of a comma or a full stop. But again, we come back to the question, why does China act in this manner of a bully? Well, I have some explanations for you. And the reason for this Chinese behavior is not incidental. It is not only because it is communist China. It is not just because of the Chinese Communist Party. I know that a number of people are calling this virus as CCP virus. But my contention is that even if China had been a republic, the behavior would probably have been similar. Why? That is because of a unique supremacist quality of Chinese civilization. Now, I know that I am getting into a dangerous terrain, but then I have a lot of support from Chinese scriptures themselves, particularly Confucius and Sun Tzu. Do you know what the name of China is in Mandarin? It is called Zhongguo. What is the meaning of Zhongguo? Zhongguo means Middle Kingdom. Now, what is this Middle Kingdom? This Middle Kingdom means that China envisions itself as the center of the universe, in the middle of the universe. It is not only in the middle of the universe, it is also top of the universe. And all international relations, or all other international nation states are in a graded relation of inferiority. I repeat this. A graded relation of inferiority to this Chinese Middle Kingdom. Now, what are the other elements that flow out of this basic thesis? That China is the center of the universe, and also the Chinese emperor is actually a representative of God on earth. So he is representing the Chinese concept of God on earth. That's not very dissimilar with the Abrahamic religions, but it has its own unique characteristics. And those characteristics have remained whether China had been under the influence of Buddhism or Tao Chi. Even the principles of yin and yang have not been able to moderate this particular aspect of the Chinese civilization. So I will read out from my article which I wrote today, the 7 elements that define the Chinese civilization. Number 1, unity of the empire. Number 2, centrality of China in the scheme of universe. Number 3, emperor as the representative of heaven on earth. Number 4, a merit-based bureaucracy, the Mandarins. Mandarins is that bureaucracy, as the steel frame of the empire. The number 5, China as the repository of the best in everything, including human endeavor and human behavior. Number 6, all the best territories are contained within the boundaries of China, and the emperor rules over Tianxia. That means all under heaven. Number 7, this is a variant from the Sun Tzu principles that are contained in a very famous book, Art of War. Always keep testing the limits of your power without provoking war. Out of all this, do you see any reflections in the way China is handling this present coronavirus epidemic, or rather pandemic? I think almost all of these elements are present in the way China is dealing with the international community and the way China is dealing with the WHO. The WHO is almost like a slave of China right now. In fact, the other day, the Japanese Deputy Prime Minister went on record to say that WHO should change its name to CHO. That is a Chinese Health Organization, because whatever it is doing, it is serving the interests of China. So I don't know really, because devastating the world economy is going to hurt China also a big deal. Even if some of its mandarins, or the big mandarins, the top bosses, may think that this will give an economic opportunity to China and also a mercantilist opportunity to China to dominate the rest of the world. I doubt if that's going to happen, but that's the way the thinking goes in China. As far as communism is left, my contention is that communism changed forever when Deng Xiaoping made his famous statement that it is glorious to be rich. In fact, that was a kind of an earthquake for the communists of the world. Then, what is the role of CCP? CCP is now an authoritarian, capitalist enterprise for itself, by itself, and acting almost totally in the interests of the oligarchy that forms this Chinese Communist Party. It's communist only in the name. Actually, it should be named as Chinese Authoritarian Party, or the Chinese Authoritarian Capitalist. CAC would probably be a more appropriate term for the Chinese Party. In a seminal book on China, Henry Kissinger had written, "The splendid isolation of China nurtured a particular Chinese self-perception. Chinese elites grew accustomed to the notion that China was unique, not just a great civilization among others, but as the civilization itself." A scholar, Lucian Pai, also says that China remains a civilization pretending to be a nation state. That is, since China was considered to be the center of the world, the middle kingdom in the Chinese eyes, and other societies were considered gradations from it, as the Chinese saw it, a host of lesser states that imbibed the Chinese culture and paid tribute to it was considered the natural order of the universe. So what happened after Mao? Though Mao had anticipated this, he thought that if the order of communism was not entrenched well enough, that is why that cultural revolution had come. The cultural revolution was to basically remove the old culture and have the communist culture planted firmly into the Chinese soil. That did not succeed. And then what happened ultimately, that Chinese DNA reasserted itself. And once Chinese DNA had come to the fore, then the goal of building a moderately well-off society, it's called Xiaokang. Sorry, please pardon my Chinese pronunciation. So Xiaokang, moderately well-off society, became the purpose, became the aspiration of the government, and a revival of the study of Confucius in Chinese schools began. And you would have seen in the 2008 Beijing Games, the Chinese scholars were paraded in the Beijing Games itself. So that was a reassertion, a revival of not just Confucianism, but the old Chinese culture. So given this background, we can quickly summarize why China has acted with such arrogance, such unrepentant behavior, and with such unconcern towards the rest of the international community. That is because, number one, Middle Kingdom can do no wrong, and therefore it cannot admit its mistakes to the world. Therefore, the authoritarianism and the propaganda machinery will come to the fore to protect any of its mistakes. Second, the international order is supposed to be naturally subservient, so it has got no business to object. Third, it is incumbent on the Middle Kingdom to keep testing the limits of its powers. So even if there is something like this, they have to test how much they can push the boundaries of the international community. Then, the smaller countries must be made to kowtow. You know this term, kowtow? Kowtow is that particular way of Chinese salutation. People had to bend at about 210 degrees to the king. That's called kowtow. So do you have to, these smaller countries have to kowtow to China, and China of course sees an opportunity to go for a higher status. As Sun Tzu had said, that all warfare is based on deception, and Chinese Mandarins see this as biowarfare, and if they are seeing this as biowarfare, then all kind of deception, all kind of dissimulation, all kind of dissembling is par for the course. So, friends, do not be surprised at the Chinese behavior. The Chinese behavior is rooted in its past, it's rooted in its civilization. It is a civilization that is pretending to be a nation state, and its civilization has never had this goal of Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya as its leitmotif. Its purpose is very different. Its purpose is to dominate the world, and its purpose is to dominate the world as the Middle Kingdom. So, deal with it, bear it, and smile. Thank you.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.